host Ramses, but I am not alone. Would you like to guys introduce you guys yourselves to the audience today?
Hi, I'm Nuri.
And I am Common Writer Furry, but I usually just go by KRF.
So yeah, like I mentioned earlier on Twitter, I said that I have found some co-hosts to help me out because I feel like having a three-person group would be beneficial, and these guys stepped up, and I really do appreciate them. These beautiful people for stopping by and helping me out. So without further ado, let's have a little introduction. Let's talk a little bit about who you guys are and what you guys are up to and like how you guys went to San San and everything.
Well, okay. I've been into Saint Seiya for, like, in the fandom as a adult, I guess, for about 10 years, I suppose. I got into it when I was younger, when it was first kind of premiering on Cartoon Network in the US when I was probably in middle school. And I watched it, enjoyed it, and then it disappeared because that was the original uh, Ocean's dub, I believe, and it just was not very popular, so it got canceled quickly. And then I got into it again as in college. Oh my gosh, showing how old I am. But yeah, I've been into the fandom since probably about 2011, 2010-ish, to be generous, and just been enjoying it since then. I am a person who I'll admit it. I do cosplay and I do fan fiction and I do a little bit of fan art, and that's kind of what I do in the fandom.
Um, I, I was actually talking with Ramses about this a few days ago. Well, actually, a couple weeks ago now. But I don't really remember exactly how I learned that Saint Seiya existed. If I had to, like, because I just kind of always known it since I started getting into anime. Mostly because I liked Power Rangers, which I of course learned was Super Sentai, and I liked that team dynamic. And then it kind of shifted into Sailor Moon once Sailor Moon started being on television in the U.S. And I would go on eBay with our computer's crummy little dial-up internet, and I would see like animation cells, dojinshi, stuff like that, of these cool looking guys in armor. And so I would start to research it, and I would go on, like, not to date myself, but like Angel Fire and GeoCities fan websites to find out more information.
The
Um,
good
and
old
so, yeah,
days.
the olden days, but way back in the day when you had to, piece together.
When you had web rings.
Yes, and so that's kind of how I got into it. Um, I was so confused because at the time it didn't make sense to me because this was an older anime, and I just assumed that it had been dubbed into English because it looked cool. It looked very similar to things that I've been seeing on TV like Ronin Warriors and Yu Yu Hakusho.
I was going to say, I remember mistaking Ronin Warriors for Saint Seiya at a point because they were so similar.
They're very similar, especially in style and the whole team dynamic. So I just assumed that it had a dub, and maybe it just wasn't on TV, and maybe it just got released direct to VHS or DVD or whatever. And so I would search around the internet forever, and I could never find it. And at the time, I was pretty young, and so I didn't really care for subtitles. I wanted it to be in English. So it took me a long time to actually watch it. Probably around the same time that Nuri was talking about when it started appearing on Cartoon Network is when I actually got to watch it. And I remember I pre-ordered the DVDs. I got that when ADV used to do that one concept where you would buy volume one and then get the box to house the rest of the volumes that they never released because it just got canceled super early. But I was super hype about it. I kind of float between fandoms all the time, so I'm not like I don't draw very well and things like that. But I do post a lot on Twitter. I do interact with as many people as possible because it's so prevalent in like Spanish speaking areas. I have a lot of Spanish speaking mutuals and friends and things like that. So that's been a pretty interesting way of going about it because there's just not a ton of English speakers that are as intense in their love of shonen anime and old school anime as I am. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit in the fandom and how I got into it.
Yeah, most of my friends who are in the fandom, other than literally, I think one or two people who are in the US, are from other Latin American countries, or there's one person who is from France that is a friend of mine, and so yeah, it's mostly a Spanish or Latin speaking community, or Brazilian, or there's also quite a bit. I also interact with quite a few Japanese mutuals on Twitter as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what Ramses has been trying to do over the past year or so, is just make people aware that it exists, because there's so many people out there that would love it but just probably don't even know it exists, or don't maybe they saw the Netflix show and it didn't connect the dots that it was adapted, from this amazing work of 114 episodes back in the 80s.
And it's so funny because the Netflix show, believe me, it's not good, but it's bad good. It's bad good because I watched it. I watched it going in knowing it would not be good, but I very much enjoyed my ride just because it was hilarious, because they did the thing that a lot of anime used to do back in the day. They don't do it as much anymore, but I remember growing up, whenever something was dubbed, they always changed the names to be something more Western. Like the original Sailor Moon dub, it was Serena and, Lita and etc., rather than their, Usagi and Minako, etc. But then, so with the Knights of the Zodiac, they were like, Hyoga is Magnus, of all names, and then Iki is Nero, and of course, Shun is Sean, and the whole gender bend fiasco. But Shiryu is just long. And I'm like, that's not a first name. It's like borderline racist.
Am I a bad fan for just not watching it? Because the name changes I could kind of stick with, but making Shun a girl just really upset me, on a deep level, and it's because Shun was the first.
Right. But he's also gender nonconforming.
Well, he's not in an official capacity. He's not a member of the LGBT. He's not bi or gay or pan or whatever. But he's very obviously somewhere on the spectrum. And it just felt weird that they wanted to promote more female power, which is great, but they took away the LGBT representation.
Well, not
from
only
it, or
that,
at least
for them to be like, we want more female representation. I'm like, there are girl characters.
There's tons of girl characters.
There's Marin and Shina, and June even, or Shunrei, make them more stand out more if you want to have stronger female characters.
Yeah, give them more prominence in the show. You don't have to change the fundamentals of a show to be PC, or to get those extra brownie points for being inclusivity and stuff like that. I'm all about inclusivity. Don't get me wrong. I love seeing POC characters, LGBT characters, different array of what people can be like. But when you take a character and change it to fit that mold instead of adapting or bringing in new characters, something like that, it feels weird sometimes, especially in something that's so adapted or so set in stone, I guess, like Saint Seiya. Take for instance, with Marvel Comics, those characters a lot of the time change all the time, and depending on who the artist is and who the writer is, their appearances can change. Sometimes their ethnicities change. So when you have somebody like Samuel L. Jackson being in a role of a character that in the cartoon back in the 90s was white, that's not as big of a deal, I feel like, because those characters change all the time. But Saint Seiya has been so stable throughout its entire 35-year run of its characters being who they are. It just felt so bizarre to change it like that. I don't know. I feel very defensive of my baby Shun.
Problem with it is, because I also love Shun. Shun has always been a very gender non-conforming character, and it was so good for there to be a male character like, disregarding the fact that his armor is pink or whatever, or he's more on the feminine side, which is kind of unfair when in Saint Seiya half of the cast can be considered feminine. The fact that he is not a traditionally quote unquote masculine character, but he was still one of the strongest among the entire core five. Like, Shun kicks serious ass.
Later, if you ever read the manga or decide to go after those 114 episodes when we get into Hades, there's things that happen with Shun that he becomes very, very important, and his importance is like it's reliant on a lot of it.
Well, not only that, like, again, he becomes super important because of his whole role later on in the Hades arc and everything. But even in the original, first arc of the Sanctuary arc and everything like that, he has such a strong character, and he is not afraid to be emotional or sensitive. And it's the fact that they chose Shun of all people to make into a girl upset me, because they would never do that to Iki. They would never make Iki a female character, because he is traditionally considered a masculine form of, he's the traditional, I'm going to be tough and compress my emotions and be aloof and distant. I'm like, if you want to have more diversity and more across the board with your characters to be more inclusive, why not make Hyoga a girl or make Shiryu a girl, when these are also characters who could theoretically just as easily swap genders, but you pick the one that is traditionally not considered masculine. So it felt like a very cheap, low choice.
When you said Shiryu, all I could think of is like Shiryu finds every excuse in the world to take his shirt off, and I'm just like, I wonder how that would make that work if he was a girl.
I know. I love Shiryu. I love Shiryu to death. I love my boy. He never keeps a shirt on, so that would be hilarious for them to turn Shiryu into a girl to see how that works out.
And then now we have Saint to Show as well to kind of help with that as well. Although that kind of almost diverges in the complete opposite direction, where it's like all females. It's like, where are the guys? I know they're there, but
Well, the thing is with I like Saint Tia show. I do like it. My problem with that is that they have these girl characters who are able to be fighters and everything like that, but I hate what they. I am somebody who is a strong advocate for, and this is funny coming from me, who is someone who identifies as femme, the whole sanctuary mask rule. I think it's such an interesting concept. I think it is so fascinating and such a cool way to look into a culture of this world building. And it frustrates me that it is ignored in Saint Tia show, and their whole excuse is, oh, they're handmaidens, they're not actual saints, so they don't have to wear the mask. I'm like, it makes it eliminates so much of an interesting concept of them having to disguise themselves or hide their emotions behind masks. Meanwhile, the guys are way more emotional.
And I was gonna say another thing that you bring up a good point, or it's like one of the things I'll like again. If you ever find me on Twitter, if you see our official Twitter on ST Cosmocast, or if you find me on my own personal Twitter on LL_Ramses, I will always go up to bat on Saint Seiya Omega. And there's one of the things I said is like, okay, you want exclusivity, you want to do something, good. You make a new character, and I do appreciate that they made a new character in that case to fill in that inclusivity role.
Hmm. Yes, I love Aquila Yuna.
And again, going back to Saint Seiya Omega, I do appreciate the fact that like the character, there was the character in it, and one of the things is one of her major arcs is that like they had to put her in a mask, but she's like, no, I don't want to be in the mask anymore. I want to be my own independent person. So like, so you're gonna get me. So one of her major arcs is that she refuses to wear the mask, and even though like she's trained, even though at the beginning we do see her with the mask on, eventually she does take it off at her own at her own choice.
Hmm. And again, spoilers for Omega if anyone hasn't watched it, but it's so good. You should watch at least the first season. The second season is not so good, but this first season is so good because another aspect of the mask is that, again, like you said, Yuna chooses not to wear the mask later on. her teacher, Pavlin, chooses also to take her mask off for Yuna. So the thing is, again, traditionally the mask rule is that they can't, if they show their face, they have to fall in love with the person or kill them. If it's a man, obviously, because, it's the 80s and sexism is a thing. But it's when Pavlin does it in Omega, she takes off her mask, and it's very much revealed to be a thing where she chooses to be vulnerable to Yuna, to her student, and Yuna decides to be vulnerable and open to her friends when she doesn't wear the mask in the beginning of Omega. So it is a really interesting rule, and I also think it's interesting that the people who do decide to wear it the whole time, like Marin never takes her mask off. And I know it's because it's a plot point. The whole idea is she Seika? Is she not? That's the reason she doesn't take it off, is for plot reasons. But eliminating that from the nether, it's a good concept and a good, interesting way to look at how each of these characters interact with the world around them. Marin keeps herself very distant. She doesn't reveal her emotions or her thoughts. She's very private. Versus Yuna, who decides to be emotional and vulnerable and open with herself. So I think that with Seiya's show, where none of them have a mask on, other than Mayura, who wears one, and because she's a saint, it very much is like, there could be so much that could be done here, and they're just falling short because they want to show a bunch of pretty girls. I just feel like there could be again, Saint Seiya's show did a lot of things to be like, oh, we're going to, have more girl characters. We're going to focus more on Saiori and her role as Athena away from the boys, which is good. It's interesting. You also get a lot of insight into Sanctuary during Sanctuary arc from the other side, because you get to see stuff about, Saga and, Milo and other characters, which I think is cool. It's interesting and it's fun. And, but that's like pandering fan service, of course, because everybody loves the Gold Saints. Doesn't matter who it is, everybody loves the Gold Saints. They do. I am so, because I am somebody who collects figurines. I collect a lot of the myth cloths and everything like that. I have Marin, I have Shina. I want to get June, but she's super hard to find. I have Pandora, and I also want to get the God Cloth of Saiori, because I want to get all the girls. I also have Mermaid Thetis. I do. I forgot I had Thetis as well. So I have most of the girls. I know the God Cloth. I want the God Cloth Athena, and I also want the Super X of Poseidon, which has him in his chair, and he's like, I think he's like a 1/16. No, he's not even 1/16. He's like a crazy, like a 1/8 scale. So he's crazy big. So I'd have to make a whole new show for him, but I would do it because I love Poseidon so much. I love Julian.
Yeah, that one wasn't that one like thousands, like super ridiculously expensive.
Yes, it is. That is like my dream. If I ever become a millionaire, I will buy the big, huge Poseidon and build him a special shelf, and he will sit on it and be never touched.
And that was gonna be one of the points that like Common Friend Fury was telling me. It's just like he was telling me once, and I was like, oh man, why is it so hard to find like merchandise with Bronze Saint when all of it is just the Gold Saint, and it's just like, cause they sell a lot.
I want to find some stuff of the Black Saints because I really like their designs. It's just like my kryptonite that always happens with me is I'll start watching a show and the first villain will pop up and I'll know full well that villain is only going to last like 5 episodes and then be usurped by somebody else. But it never fails. Like Dragon Ball Z, Raditz is my favorite character. Raditz is only in like 5 episodes and then he's dead and then he comes back maybe 2 times throughout the like 7,000 Dragon Ball episodes that exist after that. Like, but he's still my favorite character. Yeah, well, no, one time he came back from hell. I think that was GT though, where like all the villains came back from hell to attack, and it was like a filler episode or some stupid crap. But like every show, the first villains are my favorite. So I really really like the Black Saints, and even as a kid,
I know they do have a Black Phoenix figure.
I was
My friend has it.
I see them floating around. They're just so expensive because they didn't make a bunch of them, so they're hard to come by. So it's not that they're popular; it's that they're
Yeah,
sparse.
that's me with June.
I probably will never
Yeah,
have them.
a friend of mine has the Black Phoenix, and it's like literally was like a lucky find in Japantown in San Francisco.
Yeah, and usually a lot of those, especially mid-cloth versions of the Black Saints are usually relegated to like as a P Bandai exclusive. Usually, you have to pay a premium. You gotta get it sent from Japan, or if you get lucky and find it like on Mandarake or on Yahoo auctions.
Yeah, that's June was a special limited edition. There's like only like 500 of the June, and I'm like, I just want to complete my girl collection.
Actually, I was gonna segue because like one of the things I wanted to discuss, like when I was planning out the episodes before I came up with this idea of like seeing how we would all interact was actually I was gonna talk about merchandise and how like talk about the toys and just the weird sundries of Saint Seiya that we all that either the fans would submit or you guys want to talk about. So it's like, if I talk about that, like what's like your favorite Saint Seiya like thing that you guys want to talk about? I'll go last, so it's not I'm the host, but why don't you guys go up first?
Um, like something that we own or something that we want, or like what kind of random.
Well, we can talk about wish list later, but right now, why don't we talk about like what you currently own that you like
So
that
with
have like strong
me,
attachment
one of
to
my
Saint
best
Seiya?
friends who is not super into anime. She's kind of like on the peripheral of it, and she watches stuff because her husband's more into it than she is. But we've been friends for like 10, 15 years at this point, and so we're pretty close. But she's a Sagittarius, so long time ago when Saint Seiya was on as Knights of the Zodiac on Cartoon Network, her mom saw a toy in Walmart or Target or wherever she was, and it was the Seiya gold cloth. And the only other one that they had was Dragon Shiryu of those like deluxe figures that come with all the um, like they had the massive boxes and you could put all of the armor pieces on them, and they had like shiny metallic paint, and they were pretty nice. I mean, it's Bandai America, so they're not nice, but they're pretty nice. But my like she gave them to her daughter, which is my friend, because she's a Sagittarius, and then she just grabbed the other one, I guess, and gave them to her as like a Christmas present or a birthday present. And she never really watched the show, and she wasn't really crazy about it. She thought they looked neat, but she was also moving into a much smaller house, so she's like, "Hey, do you want these?" And I'm like, yes, please. So I have these really old figures that I wasn't able to buy because I was at the time getting like $10 a week for allowance, so I'd have to save up for like 3 weeks to be able to get one, and by then they're gone off the shelves, as a kid. So I never got to have any of these when I was younger. So like they are my prized figures for as far as Saint Seiya goes. They're in my basement. They sit in front of the what little manga I have of it because the volumes are hard to find now. But anytime I find a volume, I'll snag it from like a bookstore or something. And yeah, they're because they're so old, the paint's chipping off them a little bit. But they're my favorite figures that I have, and um, that's actually why I keep thinking about the Black Saints because the boxes I have like a stack of collectible boxes in my closet, and I keep looking over, and on the side it has uh, Sagittarius Seiya, and then it has the four Black Saints on it. So they made the Black Saints, and my soul dies every time I look at it because I want those. But yeah, that's my favorite thing. It's nothing expensive or anything, but it was just one of those instances where my friend thought of me, and it was something. It was like a once in a lifetime chance type of thing that I probably won't find again in my area anyway. So I just thought it was really cool, and it means a lot to me, even though it's not anything mind blowingly expensive like a P Bandai figure or anything like that.
Right. Well, that's so funny because like it's not always the most expensive things that mean the most to you or are the most special in any kind of respect. For me, I like I said, I have quite a few figurines and some other stuff, but I'm trying to think of something. My favorite thing. It's so hard because I do like a lot of my things. I have the I am somebody who goes to a lot of conventions, and whenever I go to cons, my I try not to go with any. When I was younger, I would go crazy with the merchandise haul because I had money to burn and no bills. Now I'm an adult, so I have to control myself a bit. And so I'm like, okay, I will go in looking for Saint Seiya, and if I find anything, if it's a good deal, I'll get it. And so that's how I got Shina. That's how I got Thetis and a couple other pieces. But I found um, a when I was at a con, I found these. It was when Omega had first come out, and so it was little phone straps. And of course, most Western phones don't have a place to put phone straps, so I just turned it into a keychain. But I had gotten all the main five. I had gotten Soma, Yuna, Koga, uh, Ryuho, and Haruto. And I gave no, and Eden the six because there were six because I also had gotten Eden. So I gave Eden and Haruto to my one of my best friends, and then I kept the other ones. I eventually gave Soma to another friend, and but I kept Yuna uh, and Ryuho, and I kept them on my keychains, and I had them for years until finally I have a lot of stuff on my keys, so they just got beat up over time, and Ryoho lost his arm, and Yuna lost just disappeared one day on the metro. So I've to this day I still look for them to have them back because I love them so much.
I had little. It was like the same thing. I used to be super obsessed with Lupin the Third, and they had. I found these keychains that were like 3D figures that were like 2 inches tall. Like they weren't flat like foam straps, but they were like PVC, like little bitty 2 inch figures.
Oh no, these were like figurines that were on a strap.
Yeah, yes, it was one of those, and so I got the whole cast, and I had just learned to drive. This is the first time that I drove to a convention by myself, so it's probably like 16 or 17. And I put it immediately on my keychain and I put it in my pocket. And within a day, it had popped off and it was gone. And I still have the rest of them, but I lost Fujiko in like the Playboy Bunny looking outfit, which is one of my favorite. Like, not to sound creepy, but I love that outfit on her. She looks so cute. Um, and I lost that one. And I've just like, I think about it every once in a while. I'm like, man, I was dumb.
I know. I wish I had not put them on my keychains. I wish I had put them somewhere safer. But at the time, they were so cute and important to me, and I wanted to show them off, so I had them on my keys. And now I'm like, no. And because I even asked my friend, because I got them literally. It had to be like almost 8 years ago, 10 years ago, possibly. So I asked a friend who I'd given Haruto and Eden to. I'm like, do you still have yours? And they checked, and like they still have them in like on a display in the room. I'm like, that's what I should have done. I'm so stupid.
What about you, Ramses? What is your most important to you?
Oh man. Okay, so you guys gotta realize one thing. I used to live in Mexico. So in Mexico, obviously, it was Saint Seiya. It was like only. It was like it was the big thing. It was the thing. I think I've mentioned to you guys this so many times, and I've mentioned this so many times on the podcast that it was a big it was a big it thing for it to be in Mexico. And one of the things I remember very fondly is that one day I just got one day out of the blue. My mom was like, "Pick up a toy. Pick up a toy. Pick up any toy you want. I don't care because she saw I had some good grades and was like, you've been working hard. Why don't you pick up something for yourself? And then it's like, okay. And I went looking around and I saw like Saint Seiya toys were flying off the shelves, but I had to look for one in particular, and this was the last one at the store, and it was like all official, like all on the up and up. It was a official Saint Seiya, like original, like those really thick those really big armor ones of set of Libra. And Libra is one of my favorite saints in this series. Like I absolutely love it. And then I found out later when I was more adult, like my mind blew later when I figured out like, oh my god, this guy's even better than I thought. But I loved the Libra armor because it had all these cool weapons and stuff like that. I was like, I'm gonna get so much value out of this figure. So like, I loved it. And unfortunately, when I moved here to the United States, I got lost. If you're talking about something that's more current, up to date, that I have that I really enjoy, I think one of the things I really enjoy is I picked up these gashapons of Saint Seiya. I picked up a set of them, and I like it because it had it was a set from like Tenkaihen, and it was also a set that also acted as like a Poseidon set. So I had Poseidon, had Seiya in his Sagittarius cloth, Hyoga in the Aquarius armor, in the Aquarius cloth, Shiryu Shiryu in the Libra cloth, Icarus, and it had let's Seiya again, but this time he had it in that armor you only see for like 2 seconds in the movie at the very end of the credits. That weird armor he wears, and that's the only that was the only time that was the coolest design, and I'm really happy I got that, and I really want that 15th anniversary myth cloth that figure because I love that design so much. And that's the only thing that's kind of survived in all these moves. And over the years, I picked up other things. I'm looking right now at my pop vinyl of Saint Seiya, and I have a few of the new Saint Seiya toys of the anime Heroes collection, and I have other assorted things that's come out over the years. But I think that Gachapon set, and also having that memory of those old toys, man, those really old toys from Bandai that had like the half die cast, half plastic. They all look like linebackers, but I did not give a spit about it. They were so good, and I still love them to death. And like, I still pine to find that figure, and it would be even more like nowadays. If I'm gonna find that figure, it's most likely gonna be like a bootleg, and I don't care if it's a bootleg. But if I can find one that's like authentic, that'd be great. And even more if I can find one that's Mexican Spanish packaging, because it will just it's the nostalgia of it if I ever find it again, or any figures that had like that old design. And the worst part is I could have brought some like at a convention once. Some guy was trying to hawk them for like $24 a set, and I was like, if I didn't have money, I should have brought it because he was trying to like offload a lot of them. And I think that was because a lot of those figures I think a lot of those figures. Because I'm also a toy collector, so I know like what's going on. I think what ended up happening was that there was like a warehouse that just found these figures, and I think the guy just took advantage, and he had all the surplus of Spanish, Mexican Spanish Saint Seiya box figures, and I was just like, shit, I should have brought it because I was like hesitant. I was like, is this like legit? Does it look like legitsies or not? And not only that, he was cash only. I'm like, I have no cash only. I got my card, and it's like. Brought those. And I think the figures in question, I think it was Canon. I forgot who. Yeah, anything with Canon is so good. I love Canon. That was one of them. And I think it was Shura as well. Capricorn Shura. And I forgot who. And I forgot who else. And the reason why those were the ones that were offering to me because like those were actually the ones that were more prominent. If you were going to like Mexico and you went to buy those at a store, those were the most prominent ones. That's why it was really hard to find Libra when I.
Mm. Yeah, I also have little Gashapon figures. I think it was like a year or two ago they came out with a recent Gashapon set that were like the petite something, and like they have like that really comical like the big eyes with the swirly pupils and everything like that. That distinctive style. I can't remember what the brand is, but they come with like they're like on their little stands look like columns and like the like stone of sanctuary. They're super cute, and I have all the main boys and Saiori except for Iki because I gave Iki to a friend, and it also came with Saga, but he's in his Pope Arles costume and he's holding the little dagger. So I also sent that to a friend because it was just so cute. It was just like, oh, little baby Saga holding a dagger.
Speaking of canon, actually, this was something that I wanted to bring up. I don't want to take up too much more time before we get to the episodes, but um, I talked to Ramses about this before, and I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but I'm noticing that a lot is, especially in the past few years, they're focusing on certain characters a lot more because they're more popular. But that means it's just making it to where we don't get full sets. And the best example that I have of that currently is Banpresto, that does like the Crane Game figures. Started like early to mid last year, they started doing a series of Saint Seiya characters in street clothes instead of in the armor, and that's my jam. Like I love the street clothes. Like don't get me wrong, I love the armor and I want all the armor figures, but like I really like the street clothes too. I think it makes it for like a unique figure that you don't see a lot of the time. So they came out with Seiya, then they came out with Ikki, and then they came out with Shiryu. And so I was like, okay, Hyoga's next. My boy, my icy baby boy is next, and we're getting him. Next was Aeolia, and I'm like, what? And they just skipped straight to the Gold Saints, and they did him, and they did
That's why
Mu,
I'm
and then
shocked they
Canon
didn't
is
do
going to come out
Shun, because
soon as
Shun is
well.
very popular. I figured they would do Shiryu. Shiryu is not ironically, I guess it makes sense, because Shiryu is kind of like the traditional, his character archetype is very popular in Japan, so of course Shiryu is the most popular one in Japan. He's like, he always wins the popularity polls other than the Gold Saints. Gold Saints are different, but among the main five, he is the most popular. But I wish they would just give him clothes that are not like the kung fu outfit. Please put this boy in jeans. Oh my god, they didn't even put him in clothes. I know, but put him in jeans. Put this boy in jeans.
I hope that they go back because I want Shun's. Well, this one is just him shirtless. It's just yeah, he doesn't even have clothes like his pants, but he doesn't have a shirt on. I mean, like that's pretty on brand for Shiryu though, for him not to have a shirt on. But like I like them because like their Cosmo is flowing and like their clothes are like have like little tears and stuff in them and it's like floating up, so you can tell that they're like powering up their Cosmo. So they look really nice. I just wish they would have like finished the core five because I love Yoga and I love Shun, and Shun's little overalls would be so cute to have a figure of. Oh my god. So maybe they'll go back, but as of right now, they've just skipped to doing the Gold Saints now, and it's I
Yeah, hopefully they'll go back once they finish the gold. It might just be that they were dipping in popularity because, you know, I'll
I
be.
mean, especially since they're bringing out Canon before some of the other Gold Saints, it's definitely popularity. Like because Canon does not pop in until pretty late in the game as far as the Gold Saints are concerned. So
Yeah, and he's barely a gold saint. He's a gold saint for about 2 fights. He's a gold saint for about 2 days before he dies at the Wailing Wall. Spoilers.
he's an honorary one, sort of.
No, I love Canon. Don't get me wrong. I love him. I love his whole thing. Like, if we ever get to the Poseidon episodes and his episode where he reveals his whole evil plan, it is a great episode because this is a man who's had 13 years to not know what he's doing. That's so funny. It's so funny whenever somebody's like, whenever they get into Saint Seiya, they immediately are like, okay, I gotta figure out if I can relate my sign to the gold saint that represents that sign. I did the same thing. I'm a Virgo. I was immediately like, I gotta know about this Virgo saint. I gotta figure out if we can vibe.
Well, I'm a Gemini, so I absolutely love both him and Saga. Like when like again, not to spoil anything, but we're not too far off from it, so it's not a mega spoiler. But like when I was a kid and or when I was younger and I was watching the Gold Saint art, and I was like, okay, they're going through house by house, they're gonna get to Gemini soon, and they got to Gemini fairly quickly, and it was like this shadow guy, and I'm like, I got gypped. My what the heck? Because I didn't know the big twist at the end of that arc. So it's like I got screwed over in this situation. Like my saint sucks. Like he's got a cool power, but like yeah. And then like you get to the end of the arc, it's like no, I hit the jackpot. I got the best.
But then you realize it's one of the best.
And okay, so like one of the things that I also should have mentioned as well, and maybe we can transition to something that's like what's the weirdest thing you've seen Saint Seiya? like promoted or something like that. I guess like I said, Saint Seiya was like the biggest thing in Mexico, and in like they were selling everything with the word they could any sundry you can slap the word Saint Seiya on, they would slap it. And I remember like they actually sold, and I
Potato
kid you
chips.
not,
I mean, that
and
doesn't shock me. Japan will slap.
they
I know
sold
it's you
potato
said
chips
it's
of Saint
Mexico, but in
Seiya.
Japan they do the same thing. They will slap an IP on anything.
I
They
mean, they do
have
it here
freaking
too.
Rosa
Like
Versailles
I'm a big
toilet
Overwatch
paper. Like, come
player.
on.
I'm a big Overwatch player, and I literally have like a Pringles can that had Lucio on it. So like, it's the same thing over here. Maybe not with toilet paper, but
Well, no, it's just I guess it's weird because it's like I never really thought twice about it, and it's so weird. It's specifically branded as Saint Seiya. It's not something that they just put in just because. It is something specifically branded as such, and it's like and it always struck me as so weird. And one of the things that was also pretty big at the time is that in those potato chips they would have like in Mexico we would call them tazos, and here in the United States they're called pogs. So I had Little Ramses had like a huge collection of Saint Seiya pogs.
I haven't seen Pogs in at least a decade.
Yeah, I have not seen Pogs in many a year. I'm old enough to remember Pogs, and I have not seen them since I was a child.
Yeah, I had some Sailor Moon ones that were pretty dope. I was a Sailor Moon baby.
I was also a Sailor Moon baby. I actually seen Sailor Moon when it first came out in Japan. I would watch the anime even though I didn't understand a whole lot of it. And then I remember when I came back to the States, it had not come over yet, but I would talk about it all the time. I had toys and stuff like that for Sailor Moon, and it hadn't dropped in the US. And so people were like this crazy, Japanese stuff, and then it dropped and it was hugely popular, and I was like, then I was never cool, but I was like I had known about it before it had gotten popular in the States. I was never cool. And it was never cool to begin with, but before it blew up in the States, I remember being like talking about it and people being like, "I have never heard of this show before. I don't know what you're talking about." I would bring toys to show and tell, and no one knew what it was.
I liked it before it was popular.
I was gonna say like I've noticed like this like Venn diagram where it's like in the middle is Sailor Moon when it comes to Saint Seiya. So it's like it doesn't surprise me because like it's opposite for me. I got into Saint Seiya first, and the replacement show for Saint Seiya after it got done was actually Sailor Moon.
Yeah, I got into Sailor Moon first, like I said, because of how when I was growing up. But then in the States, Sailor Moon came over first, and then Saint Seiya came by when I was in middle school. So that's why it was reversed for me. And I was also always a very girly child.
I just want to apologize to all the listeners, though, because especially if you don't know a lot about Sailor Moon, but there's a lot of parallels between the two shows as far as like how the core team operates, and it's a team of 5, and there's all these like additional people that are like, and then my dog is barking. But no, anyway, I wanted to apologize to the fans or the listeners out there because there's so many similarities between Sailor Moon and Saint Seiya, and obviously Sailor Moon came much later. Well, not a whole lot later, but quite a bit later as far as like anime terms are concerned. So I'm sure that it had some kind of inspiration there, but I just instinctively, because Sailor Moon was like my show as a kid, I draw a lot from that. So you might hear me several times in the coming episodes being like, "This reminds me of a time in Sailor Moon," and it just spills out of my mouth without me meaning to say it. So I hope that doesn't deter anybody. But they are. There's a lot of similar elements.
Yeah, for me it's just like it was just like, oh wow, this looks like, to me it was similar looking, and also it had like a lot of the Sentai things. It had a lot of the Sentai elements that Furry was talking about earlier. And it's just like, that's a whole different podcast altogether, so we can discuss that, or we can discuss that off on a podcast. But like, if you're concerned, I wouldn't be that concerned because I've noticed that not just you guys, but a bunch of people are also like, if they're a Saint Seiya fan, about 90% of the time they're also a Sailor Moon fan as well. So don't worry about it too much.
Yeah. So that was just my piece. Sorry, I was gonna say something and then my dogs distracted me, and so I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Like I said, all right. Just let's like end this topic then. Like let's talk about what is the one thing you really want from Saint Seiya? And I know, and we already discussed it before, but I guess I should say mine. And like I said, like if I had the opportunity to pick up anything from like Saint Seiya, I think for me it would have to be just like it would have to be one of those like those expensive Prime One statues that they released recently with the LEDs on it. Especially when I saw the Iki one, I'm like, I need that one. And also the one with Shiryu was also extremely good as well. So one of the either two. I've known Prime One for a long time because of their Transformers output, and it's just like I know like those are like some like really expensive ones. And Yuri, you said that that you wanted that scaled Poseidon figure, right?
Yes, I would love the 1/6 scale or 1/8 scale, possibly Poseidon. 1/6 scale would be massive. I think it's actually 1/8. But 1/8 scale Poseidon is a dream of mine. I also would like the really fancy dancy super detailed Shiryu or Iki. Either one would be fine with me. I wish they would release the Shun. Again, those are thousands of dollars. Those are like if I hit the lottery.
If I had to pick something that I would want, I mean, mine's kind of sad because it's actually super easily to obtain it for the most part. I just got to spend like $300 or so. I really want the God cloth for Camus.
Oh yeah.
He's my favorite gold saint with the big wings and up from Soul of Gold, where they just go like balls to the wall with making everybody look ridiculous. Yep, just everybody gets a wing. Just slap a wing on it. No, that's why I love Soul of Gold because it just got ridiculous for a while. But I really want that one. It went up. I remember when Solo Gold was airing, they announced it, and it went up on AmiAmi and sold out in like 30 seconds. And I was refreshing, waiting to put it in my cart, and before I could even complete the checkout, it was sold out. So I was just devastated. And then my now husband, we weren't married at the time, but my now husband was like, "We're you understand that we wouldn't be able to pay rent if you'd bought that." And I was like, that is not the point right now. Like, this is not the discussion. Like, I understand that it would have been tough to make it through, but I would have my favorite figure. Okay, it'd be great.
Hey, ramen noodles are cheap.
There are sometimes there are more important things than rent. I'm saying this as somebody who
Ice cubes are free and they come out of the fridge, and all you gotta do is chew on it, and you'll feel better. You'll be hungry anymore.
also pays my bills first. But yeah, I'm somebody who's like, if I can get it, I will eat top ramen for a long time.
By the way, we're not advocating anybody at all to be doing any of this. Like we're not experts on finances or anything like that. So just a no.
We are not encouraging anybody to starve themselves for figures.
What will satisfy my hunger will be that Camus figure.
And not just that, it only pertains to us. So don't worry about. So don't worry. Like we don't want you guys.
We are not financial experts. This is purely facetious exaggeration. This is a joke. This is a goof. Yeah, if I want to spend my money how I want to spend my money, that's fine. Do what you got to do.
Anyways, I think we should talk. I think I want to touch up because like there's not really not that much news to talk about, but there is something I do want to talk about like very briefly, and it's the fact that recently it was revealed that not super recently. It's like 3 weeks now, so this tells you like how long we've been like we haven't had an episode, and that's the fact that AMC Networks here in the United States has acquired Sentai Filmworks. Sentai Filmworks has been worked on the dub of Saint Seiya, the new one that we all been clamoring for. And what this means is that like they brought all their assets and they also brought their streaming service High Dive. And like right now it's a wait and see if they can if they can bring back Saint Seiya in this way on AMC's like on AMC Plus or on like on High Dive or whatever they're gonna put it on. and I'm pretty sure
I would question because Toei is very, very protective of their IP. Toei does not easily give away, and like the fact that we had a dub with Netflix is pretty impressive. I mean, just think that they did the dub with the whole Saint Seiya. They never got to Hades. I think they couldn't get the rights to Hades because Hades was done by a different studio. But they never got Hades done. They didn't do anything, even though Toei still owns Legends of Sanctuary, they never dubbed that either. So the thing is, Toei is very protective of their stuff, and so I would love if AMC was able to get access to it, but it's not going to be anytime soon, unfortunately, I don't think.
Well, I kind of disagree. I kind of disagree with that. Like Toei historically is very protective of their properties. Lately, though, as in within the past few years, I mean, we're getting not to delve into a completely different fandom, but we're getting Kamen Rider for the first time ever subtitled. Like they're finally letting companies take it, subtitle it, and stream it. We actually just got our first ever Kamen Rider Blu-ray ever, except for the movies. I think ADV licensed a couple of the movies like back in the early 2000s. But as far as like actual TV show, we just got Zero One on Blu-ray, and it's a physical copy of it. And similarly, not to bring up Sailor Moon again, but famously, Toei said that they would never let the United States have stars because it was that they didn't think that we would understand it, and Funimation was able to get it and do it. So I think that they're starting to lighten up a little bit on things. They're very much partnering with like Crunchyroll to have simulcasts and stuff like that of like Digimon and other shows Precure and things like that. So I think that they're lightening up and they're starting to see the potential of a Western market. But that being said, Saint Seiya has not historically done well, so they might not want to bother with it either. So I don't know if it's as much as being protective of it as if they just probably won't make money off of it here, or they don't think they will.
That's fair. I mean, they've already done the dub, so I think that they've already kind of put their money into the dub, and I'm just like, just put the dub on a streaming service. I watched it on Netflix. I know that for whatever reason they only had it on for I think 18 months. But bring it back to a streaming service. Believe me, I will do the numbers for you. I will watch it every day if I have to because I loved it. It was so good.
I
It's
would say
actually
like
shorter than
what
18 months if
the
you
reason why
remember
I
that
think
they
like
released the
why it was
episodes
so
in
short.
batches. Like we
They
didn't
were
have the
really I
full
think they were
series.
banking on the
We only had
fact
the
that
full series for like a
the
year because
CBS
it was
No,
like
it wasn't
every
even
month or two
the
they would
full
release
series
like
for a year.
13
They
download
released
very
episodes.
cheap,
Poseidon like
so they
six
were hoping
months
that they can get more out of
after the
the
first two.
CBS series. But I think COVID has
I said that they
made
released Poseidon, I believe,
like
6 months after they
why
released
they all split
Asgard. So
up.
it was a while
And I'm
between
pretty sure
Asgard and
like we'd be
Poseidon.
having a whole different discussion if that wasn't the case. Like I'm pretty sure it would have, I think they would have negotiated something so they would have still been on it. And
Yeah, they did not have the original
it's not too
animated series for the
it's not
whole 18
a
months.
rare thing for them to do. If I remember when they did that live action Cowboy Bebop series, they also put
There's
the other
118
the
episodes.
anime
It
as
would be a
well.
lot for
So
anybody
it's
to
just like
finish, even though it was there for
both a
18
good
months
idea
when
and
only
it was
when the
also
last half of
like
it
It
wasn't
took
chopping
them
there,
it took them a long. So
except for the
we didn't
last nine
have
months. That's a
the
long
full
like
base
time.
kind of
series, I guess you could
overpricing
call it,
and the
for
better
very
things
long at all.
available.
So I just remember I didn't even get to finish Poseidon. I don't think at all in the dub. Yeah, I definitely was keeping up with it as they released it for the first bit, but like any show, you get distracted or it takes too long, in Saint Seiya's case for episodes to come out, and sometimes you just forget about it. And that's the danger of streaming is everybody kind of binges it and then forgets about it too. So they get caught up to the newest season and then kind of forget
Right.
that it exists for however many more
I
months it takes
didn't
for
watch the
episodes
whole
to come
dub.
out.
I
So
watched all of
that's
Sanctuary
kind of
arc.
what I
I
ran into.
watched
So I
all
know
of
I didn't
Poseidon arc.
finish
I
the
did not
dub, which
watch
I
all of
super
Asgard,
regret, and I
unfortunately,
really hope it
because it
gets
was
put somewhere
going to
else so
be
that I
leaving
can,
soon, and I wanted to get through
because those voice
Asgard arc. I
actors
mean, through
really put in
Poseidon
the
arc,
work to make
and
this
so I kind
show
of prioritized,
good because it
unfortunately.
was.
And so I didn't get to hear all the voices in Asgard, which kind of bummed me out because I would have loved to hear
Yeah,
the dub for
I just
Asgard.
I don't know. I thought that they could have easily kind of taken the easy way out and just kind of like half did it because it's such an older show and it's not. I mean, they didn't seem to have a whole lot of faith in it, so they could have easily just been like, "Man, let's just kind of half-ass it and get it out there, or whatever." But no, they took their time.
Kind of like the original, not the original dub, the second dub, the
Yeah, that
ADV
the
dub was kind
ADV
of
dub
like that at
super
times.
felt like that, unfortunately. Especially the freaking, I think it was the silver, not the silver saints, the steel saints. Oh my goodness, I just remember hated them.
I have a strong
The
opinions
steel
of
saints,
Silver
not the
Saints.
silver
So
saints. Sorry.
the thing is, they did the new Knights of the Zodiac Saint Seiya with the whole CGI show, and they tried to go in a different direction, which they tried to combine I think they had a Japanese director, but they were also had like Western writers, if I remember correctly. So they tried to combine two very different styles, which is not a bad thing. I think it's kind of cool that they try to do that, but they did it in a way that really did not. It tried too hard in the places that didn't matter, and then not hard enough where it did. They tried. Mhm. Well, I was going to say that, like what we were talking about earlier, making Shun a girl rather than promoting other female characters like Saori or, Shina, Marin, etc. And then also trying to change, like, some of the changes they made, I feel like were interesting. Like, I feel having I call him Almond because that's how his name sounds, but um, her grandfather having a friend, quote unquote, in this in Vander Garad, where he was the one of the he was like kind of the I guess the initial villain in the series because he thinks Athena is going to destroy the planet because there's a prophecy or something. I'm very vague on that part because that was kind of bizarre. But having a person who is not Saga or Sanctuary have this opinion of Saori where she's going to be dangerous and stuff like that, it was kind of interesting. I thought it was a kind of a cool new spin on it. I liked that they tried to do different things. I liked how they had done things with Seiya and his sister Seika, and I really liked how they started the whole idea of Marin being Seika earlier than when it was in the original anime, where it only came out when Misty had made that comment or something like that. So there was parts of it where they did some interesting things. I feel like if they had done more to flesh out their ideas that were new and innovative rather than trying to fix what they thought would be marketable, it would have been better. By trying to make it more marketable, they made it less marketable.
And again, I did not watch much of it, so you can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I just remember seeing all these interviews about them wanting to have girl power and promote female power, which is great. But like I felt like that was the perfect opportunity to give Sayori a much bigger role because for a good deal of the initial anime, she's especially in the Gold Saint art, she's just damsel in distress. Like she she's like the one they have to protect and save. She doesn't get all cool and powerful, at least in a offensive sense, until much later on. And they could have initiated that if they wanted to have that female power and just made her like a boss, like boss babe or whatever you want to call it, and like yeah, girl boss. And but
Girl boss. See, on one hand, I agree that they could have done more with Saori's character. I am somebody who I hate the idea of girl bossing a character. I hate it when they turn, because there are different types of strength. Boys are allowed to have different types of strength. Like when you think of the original series, you have Shuna again, who is more emotional, more sensitive, but he's still strong. He's strong in his own way. He's in touch with his emotions. We have Shiryu, who is the more calm and composed. He has his moments where he kind of goes a little crazy, but he's kind of like seen as the more mature of the group. Then there's Hyoga, who is also, sensitive, emotional, cries. Seiya is the ever standing protagonist of, let's go get him, guys. Let's, unite under the power of friendship. So they have all their different strengths and all their different things. And so when a lot of times I notice, and especially with media that tries to be like, we're going to make girls strong now, they always make the same girl, where she's a tough girl who can hang out with the boys, and she's not like other girls. And, she had a lot of brothers, so that's why she can keep up with everybody. And it's like, not every girl has to be a fighter. Not every girl has to be strong physically or powerful in some other way. I think what I really liked about, well, because this will be mentioned when we go into the episodes, is that there are characters in the series like Shunrei, who is a girl, who is, I think, a very strong character, who is not a fighter, but she's able to stand up for herself. She gives her opinion. She's not she doesn't shy away from the harder parts of being a saint. She understands what Shiryu does, and she's fully invested in his thing. She tells him, yes, he has the option to choose another path if he wants, but she still supports him regardless. And that's a strength in some way. So for them to be like, oh, we're going to make Shun into a girl, and we're going to make her just like a girl boss, where she's just like the other boys, it's like, then she could have still been a boy. She could have still been Shun.
Just keep her a boy. Like Shun is effeminate enough. Like there's no reason to literally make him a girl. Like he already like I don't know. I can go on forever about how that's just like LGBT erasure, which I'm sure was not what they intended to do, and I don't want to accuse anybody of that, but that's how it felt to me as an LGBT person, that seeing this character that was one of the first, I mean, outside of, again, Sailor Moon, sorry to bring it up again, but outside of Sailor Moon and its fantastic display of LGBT characters, this was the first time that I had really seen an anime do it and then act like it's no big deal. Like it wasn't like Gravitation or something like that, where the whole focus of it is, oh my god, he likes boys, or oh my god, he's an effeminate boy. It's just that's who he was, and he got teased for it sometimes, but it wasn't a plot point, like outside of the very beginning where he didn't want to go to Death Queen Island. But I do not want to go there. I did not enjoy it.
Well, which, to be fair, it's called Death Queen Island. I don't want to go there either. But as somebody who identifies as queer as well, or LGBT, whatever, I use the term queer. But the fact is, Shun has always been a character who, yeah, he was teased for being. He wasn't really teased for being feminine. He was teased for being sensitive, which I think Hyoga also gets, because everybody's like, "Oh, great, Hyoga's crying again." Like, I think the only time I ever, yeah, he's crying about his dead mom. What a loser. And it's just, But I think the only time I ever saw people criticizing Shun for being gay, or like making jokes about him being effeminate, was actually like not the characters in the show. It was people in the fandom who would make these jokes about him being gay and stuff like that. And I'm like, if he is, what does it matter? And two, he is still one of the strongest characters. He still stands up to people. He's still like the in one of the earliest episodes in Death Queen Island, he lifts Seiya up with chains. Like, the kid is strong. Like, I don't know if anyone has tried to lift another human being, but he's lifting somebody who is bigger than him with, with dead weight.
And it's something that's really cool is when you see I don't know how you interpret this, but like when Hyoga finally came back while we were fighting Milo, he's carrying him like ceremoniously in his shoulder, in his hand, in his over his arms, like he sacrificed. Like he's like he sacrificed it for me. Take him, make sure he's alive. Get the hell out of here. I'll take care of Milo.
Well, you also, like, that scene is also, in the show, it is not treated as him being weird. In the show, they're like, man, Shun was gonna sacrifice his life for Hyoga. That is a strong-ass man. Like, everybody was impressed with him. No one ever was like, dude, that's gay. Like, no, it was treated as him genuinely being somebody who was willing to go the distance to do as much as possible to save his friend. And it's like, because I also, like, when we get into the episodes, I will also address it, because there's other scenes with other characters that is similarly kind of like sus, because you're just like, I know it's just a show. It's a consequence of a show where all the main characters are boys, and so all their formative relationships are with other boys. And again, it's probably projection, my own bias as somebody who identifies in the LGBT community, to be like, really? But again, in the context of the show, he is not considered somebody that is looked down on for being feminine or being sensitive. For being sensitive, yes, but not because he's feminine or because he's sweet or gentle. It's seen as a aspect of his personality, like you said. And so them picking Shun of all the characters to make into a girl, again, it is just, you have to look at that. It comes off very badly, because it's like, really, you pick the one character who has pink armor and is feminine to make a girl? Really? That just seems to scream that you are deciding, oh, he's the closest thing to a girl, when he's not. He's a boy, and I am not somebody who is ever, if they had been like, it's trans Shun, I'd been like, perfect, great, let's do it, fine, sounds good, but it's not.
Not only that, like you have to think about, like, at the beginning of the show there was quite a few Bronze Saints when they were doing the Galaxian War, battle and all of that. But only three other people decided to go with Seiya. Only three other Bronze Saints were brave enough to go with him and team up with him, and everybody else kind of like cowered to the background. And Shun was one of them. So yeah, he's effeminate. Yeah, he's sensitive. And I mean, it being his brother probably had something to do with it, but he was still brave enough to be like, you know what, this may be a suicide mission, but let's do it. Like, let's at least try, to go in there and defeat the most powerful at the time Bronze Saint, and get the armor. And so it's not like it. Him being effeminate doesn't have anything to do with his strength. It doesn't have anything to do with his bravery. It's one just like any person that's queer, LGBT, however you want to phrase it. That's one aspect of who they are, and it's usually not even a major aspect of who they are. Like, there are other personality traits in there, and it was treated as not a big deal. Like, if Shun wants to, use his body heat to warm up Hyoga in the most homoerotic scene that I've seen in an 80s anime. I mean, more power to him, and nobody cared.
Yeah, I agree. I felt similar. Like, my friend and I, who watched it with me, we would make jokes. Actually, we're like, "This is Shun pre-transition. Shun is going to be a boy soon. This is pre-transition Shun."
I was gonna say, I was trying to keep my mouth shut on this issue, but like one of the things I've been saying is that they should have made him like a gender. Like, there's like no definitive gender to him. That would have been a lot better for me.
Yeah, I thought that would have been nice. But I mean, like, yeah, it reminds me a lot of like when we were kids and like Power Rangers. They would change the gender of characters all the time, but it was these like almost genderless forms in spandex with like motorcycle helmets on. So like, except for the pink one, which is almost universally considered like a girl female color, the rest of them could have been any gender. Like, I grew up because of Power Rangers thinking yellow is a girl color because the Yellow Ranger was always a girl. But like with this, it's like Shun's face isn't covered. He's very clearly said to be a male. You kept him as a male in your dub, that your companion dub that you did. It just felt like such a weird choice. Like it felt out of place. It felt weird. Like, name changes I'm fine with. Like, a lot, like westernizing things I'm completely fine with, because not everybody is as not everybody's going to go out and be like, that, that ritual they just did was really weird, and like Google it like me, and like look at, like, go into a deep dive rabbit hole on like Shinto beliefs and like all the different things that they do that's not outright said in like Sailor Moon or whatever. But like, so I can understand needing to westernize some of the stuff, but it just felt like a purposeful, weird, poor decision. Season 2 transitions.
Amazing. Perfect. No, keep it with it.
I guess this would be a good time for us to transition into the actual episodes. Yeah. No, that's fine. That's all right. No, it's because, like, I think, like, we're talking about so many different things. Like, it's just because this is our first time interacting. I'm really happy that you guys are like, we're like, I'm really happy this is working. It's just like, we gotta move on. I'm sorry. So like, we can discuss these in further episodes if you guys so wish. Because, like, one of the things I did want to address was, like, LBGQ plus stuff in Saint Seiya in a future episode. So like so we can have like a more broader discussion about that type of thing. Even though I'm not LGBTQ, I'm straight. Unfortunately, I am an ally, and I do understand. But it's one of the things where it's like, it's a fascinating discussion to have about like these types of things. So I think we should keep these opinions for another episode.
I'm fine with that. Sounds good. I'm always down to talk about queer theory with Saint Seiya.
Can we please save it for the gay hug episode? I need it on the gay hug episode.
Oh my gosh, yes, that'd be perfect.
But like I said, I'm not like knocking you guys down or anything like that. It's beautiful. You guys are having these discussions. I'm loving it. It's just the thing is, it's like this is way better if we had like like its own discussion about it. Like, this would be a perfect like. So I guess like now would be a good time for us to like just to talk about the episodes in question that we were talking about. What was it, episodes 32 to 36? I had to watch a little bit more because I completely forgot a few episodes. So like I was watching, like I had to watch a little bit more because I was like, okay, what happened in the last episode? Oh, okay, that's what happened. So I had to like go. So I actually watched like 2 more episodes than I should. So like usually I used to say 6 because that was like that was when the Saint Seiya CGI show was on. That was like the block of episodes. It was a 6 episode, so I figured 6 episodes would be good. But I think 4 episodes. I think between the 4 of us,
it was actually 5. I realized 32 through 36 was 5 episodes.
This is why math is not my strong suit.
No, it's all good. I just realized that. I'm like, wait a second, but it's all good.
I mean, it was a good stopping point, I feel like.
No, it was a perfect collection. It was just enough.
Yeah, because we got to see a lot of things in these group of episodes. We got to go back to Death Queen's Island. We got to see Django and his Black Saints, and also we got to see Oro and.
Oh go!
I got really weirded out because I know that there was, like, I remember there being a lot of fights without their armor on because it's a shonen fight like type of anime, but I didn't realize how many of the villains were such cowards that they, like, I can't think of his name. I'm blanking on his name. The guy that was the Silver Saint that was fighting against Seiya. on top of the mountain.
Was the crow guy? That was Jamin.
Yeah, like he did not give any craps that Seiya did not have his armor, and then was like berating him, saying that he wasn't impressed with him or anything. And I'm just like, dude, he's not even at his full power because he doesn't have his cloth. Like you're like, like, well, I mean, and then I can't. I'm so bad with names. I should have wrote their names down. Oko was also just like pounding away on freaking Shiryu, like blind Shiryu, just pounding away on him. I mean, when he found, like, eventually he stopped. He's like, oh yeah, you're incapacitated. But like, and then Shina in the last episode that we watched, she's like, I don't give a crap that you literally just came out of the hospital near death. I'm still gonna try to murder you. It's like these people just don't care. They're just like, they have no like honor, I guess would be the right word to use. They just kept coming for him, regardless of if they were like even able to fight.
That'd be Silver Saints, though. That's just Silver Saints.
So we got to see a lot of him, and also a lot of time with like him being like young and training with Doko and Shiryu. So we got to see a lot of that kind of thing as well. And also we finally started seeing a little bit more like what's going on in the sanctuary. And like, you know, we're slowly.
I will counter that Oko, like you said, he did not realize at first that Shiryu was handicapped. He just was assuming that Shiryu was like him. He had spent all this time training. He had actually earned the dragon cloth, and so he came at him thinking that they were on par. When he realized that he and Shiryu were not on the same level because Shiryu was blinded, he fully was like, "Hey, I'm going to step back. We're going to come back and address this. I'm going to be even. I'm going to blindfold myself, even though that has nothing." I'm like, why is this a thing? I understand he was trying to dull his senses like him. I'm also just like, wait, you did not also gouge your own eyes out. There's a whole situation happening. But I will go to bat for Oko because I do love him so much, and he fully was like, hey, I'm gonna make this as fair as possible. I appreciate him.
Yeah, he did even the playing field there, but like Shina and then Crowman, like Arcane, is that his name? Is it?
Yeah, Arcane. I was gonna correct you. It's like Arcane. That's the guy he fought on top of the mountain when Seiya was going for the water of life. Jamin is the crow that's the crow guy. That's the guy that they fought way before in the last block of episodes.
Oh my god.
I think that's further on, but that is good foreshadowing.
Like at least with Shina they kind of rationalized it with like she has to kill him, and this is with Seiya constantly growing, you know, in power and his Cosmo expanding and stuff like this. This might be the only opportunity that she has to kill him. Now that he can apparently just blink at a Silver Saint and they implode like he did with Arcane after he got his cloth on. That was the saddest fight of all time. It's just because like 5 episodes ago, like these Silver Saints were like pounding them into the ground over and over again, and now they're just like, whatever, get out of here. Like, you're annoying. But I think that Shina saw that as like her only opportunity, I guess, because he was so rapidly growing in strength, and maybe that's what she decided to do, like a more cowardly thing and attack a literal guy with crutches. But yeah, I forgot.
A literal guy with crutches. I love it.
Yeah, he was walking around with crutches, and then China just like falls out of the trees and starts beating the crap out of him, and I was like, stop it.
I respect Shina. I'm like, man, I think, yeah, she definitely was like, this is my opportunity, but she also, I can't remember if it was addressed in this episode. She was also aware that Seiya was about to get his ass pounded to him by an actual Gold Saint. Like, she's like, at least I can take him out and be merciful. The Gold Saints might not be as kind.
Yeah, they didn't address that. It's going to be in the next. Yeah. But it's just like, as far as the context that we know in this episode, and then with Arcane, Arachne or Arcane, however you say his name, like it just seems like the Silver Saints. It seems like there's a reason why people don't like the Silver Saints as much. Outside of Misty, I really don't remember many of them because Misty was just so iconically like, you know, naked.
I was gonna say something else, but naked works.
Oh, that was a fun time. That was like I don't know why my mom keeps on coming in the weirdest times when I was younger.
Well, I mean, like, to be fair, Saint Seiya has a lot of male nudity, and I mean it's because most of its characters are male, but there's plenty of opportunities for them to show the female characters and compromise in situations, but they just kept showing Shun's butt in the shower, like for the first half of the show, like or the first half of the series, like it's like why is Shun showering again?
Equality.
And I was gonna say that, but we have to see. Well, we goes both ways. We saw Shinbei, a little bit of it.
Yeah, we saw Shunrai's butt.
I forgot about that. I guess my gay mind blocked it out. Like, nope, only focus on Shun's butt.
That's so funny. No, I think that's the only time though we ever see any kind of female nudity is Shunrai's butt.
Yeah, because she swims naked in the episode with Oko.
That's not in the original, is what I mean. Like in the original series.
There's the Tenkai Hen at the very end, but that's a whole different discussion.
Because then if we want to get into that, then there's like the whole nonsense with Lost Canvas. That's a whole nother discussion because Pandora and Sasha had like entire unnecessary
I always forget that
boobs
China's
and
a
legs
Silver Saint,
and
to be honest
things
with
happening.
you. I like China.
But no, the Silver Saints. I like a few of the Silver Saints because I do like China. I do like Marin. I also like June, who's considered a Silver Saint. Actually, is she considered silver? Maybe she's bronze. But then there's a couple of the silvers I like. Most of them are kind of like fillery, like I remember. And then I remember there's Peacock Shiva, which is from the Shaka episode. He was one of Shaka's fanboys. I remember him. I don't remember the name of his best friend, but they were like totally together.
Nudie, just to clarify, June is a bronze saint.
Okay, I figured because I was like, wait a sec, I think she is bronze because the other Andromeda boys are also bronze.
Yeah, I just gotta make sure because I had to do some quick Google foo on.
I had to make sure because I was like, and then yeah, she is bronze. I just am so used to everybody considering only the Japanese bronze to be bronze, but no, she's one of the bronzes.
My other big takeaway, though, from this batch of episodes is like it goes back to we were kind of talking. It might have actually been off before we started recording, but just there's like some tropes that this. I can't tell you if this show started it because some of these tropes go way back. But some of those shonen tropes, and one of the tropes is naming your characters like literal names. Like Shiryu is like, I think it translates to like purple dragon. And just the flashback, it cracked me up so bad with when Oko and Shiryu were both like younger, and one of them was going to be the Dragon Saint. And I'm like, you have Shiryu Dragon and Oko Tiger. I wonder who is going to have the dragon cloth. Like, I wonder who is destined for this dragon cloth. Could it be the kid literally named Dragon? I don't know. It's probably the tiger. Like, it's like the suspension of disbelief because it is like a younger adult show.
Shiryu, I assume it's like, anybody whose name Alexander is not going to be a, person in Rome is not going to be a Caesar.
If you name Alfred, you're not going to be a butler.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it was these two kids competing, and one of them's literally named Dragon for the dragon cloth, and I'm just like, come on, Oko, are you kidding?
And I just find it so funny because I joke, it's such a funny thing for me for it to be Doko and then Oko, and I'm just like, you just chopped off one letter.
I do wonder, did they name him? Did they name Doko before or after this? That's what I'm wondering. It's like I wonder if it's the chicken or the egg kind of, or they just kind of stumbled upon it by accident. And Kuromada's like, I like that name. I'm gonna put a D on the end of it.
I mean, you again. I feel like I don't mean to like come for you, and I apologize if it feels like that. But like you said you assumed that he told him. Why didn't he tell him that he was planning on Camus being Hyoga's master? And they did this whole weird crystal saint thing.
No, Doko had always been, he was called Roshi, and I believe he was known as Doko before because I can't remember when because I know that they had started doing the anime during the manga, and the manga had even now, it has a lot of stops and pauses and stuff like that, where Kurumada has to stop for whatever reason, and so there's gaps. I don't know if Doko was officially named. I'm assuming he let them know what he planned to name the Libra Saint. I'm assuming he knew from the get go, and I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
Believe it or not, there is an answer for that. There is actually an answer for that because originally they weren't even sure. No, they were. Kurumada was unsure if it was even going to be Camus to start with. I think from the earliest things was that it was going to be Milo instead of Camus.
That still doesn't explain the Crystal Saint.
No, it does not. Well, Crystal, I think, like I said, it might just be that he hadn't decided at that point when they started doing Crystal Saint, because they had to have, flashbacks to him training because everybody else had flashbacks at that point. And they're like, we can't.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of weird things as well. You have to look into as well, like the saint. You got to also remember too, the same saint that trained Shun in the anime is a very different in the manga.
He looks totally different, and his behavior is different because in the anime, Albiore is treated as like he's like almost gold saint level. Everybody's like, he is the strongest silver saint. He is super tough. And the way he treats Shun is like he fully acknowledges that Shun was strong the entire time, that Shun was holding himself back and that sort of thing. And in the manga, he was very different.
So like I'm pretty sure, like I want to say that a lot of it was like they're on, like Kurumada was on the edge of it, like making up as he goes, but sometimes too, I question sometimes if it, like things were it like which like if he got influenced by what he saw in the anime.
It possibly is. I know that Crystal Saint I've never been into because they tried so hard to retcon it by the time they got to Sanctuary Arc. They tried, because in the fight, not to get out of the episodes that we're talking about, but in the fight with Hyoga and Camus, he is like, you are the teacher of my teacher, so you're essentially my teacher, trying to be like, by the way, this is the relationship. And I'm like, that doesn't work.
Yeah, but anyways, let's go back to like the episodes at hand here. Furry, my good man. Let's go back just a little bit more. The Black Saints that they introduced. I know you're a big Black Saint fan. What do you think of those new Black Saints they introduced?
Yeah, they weren't the thing that I liked about the Black Saints is they were so distinct. I mean, yes, they were carbon copies, the black carbon copies of the main four, which also creates another plot hole. Like, how did they know that those were going to be the four that were going to chase them to Death Queen Island? Anyway, let's not get into that. But they were so distinctive, and they had their own personalities, and their armors looked beautiful. These were very obviously foot soldier moots that were just like cannon fodder for a second there. So it didn't feel the same. It didn't have that same like excitement to it. Like, I was momentarily excited. I was like, oh yeah, the Black Saints are back, and it's like, no, they're not. It's more like they're back to be punched in the face quickly and then go away. So like it was a nice kind of callback to the beginning of the show, so that we know that they're, especially going back to Death Queen Island. Like, this whole arc right here felt like a nice callback to the beginning of the show and transition into the new, as we transition into the new story arc, to where they're making sure that we remember who these characters are at their core, which was really nice to see and good for character development and growth and stuff like that. But I just felt like they either should have not had the Black Saints there at all, or they should have, I don't know, they just looked generic, I guess. Like, they just kind of placeholder foot soldier people. So, I mean, I was excited, but it faded very quickly.
They tried really hard to retroactively correct that, but yeah.
Yeah, most of them are like jobbers anyways. I'm pretty sure he's like, no, I'm not gonna be like those other guys. I'm actually gonna succeed in doing something here.
I had a question about that, because there's one part where the guy, like, Icky is confronting Django and the other foot soldiers, and there's like one guy who is like a Black Phoenix, and he's like, I'm gonna show him that Black Phoenix is the best of the Black Saints. And I'm like, wasn't there like 10 Black Phoenixes in the original? Like, so like for him to be like Black Phoenix is the best, I'm like, there's like 20 of you.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of them, but he's the best one. Well, maybe he killed all the other ones, and it's like the Highlander, and they're gonna be one. So like he was.
I guess there could only be one. Yeah, because I wrote that in my notes here. It says, wasn't there like 10 Black Phoenix Saints in the Black Saint arc? What's going on? Right. And that's another thing is like with this whole Black Saint arc, how like when uh, this whole episode, I have so many notes, but but there's the part where Saori is like has like Iki spidey sense where she's like, oh, something's happening with Iki. I'm like, how do you know? She's like, I guess she feels a Cosmo. But then she sends the guys to Death Queen Island, and I'm like, what does she tell these pilots and these chauffeurs when they take a bunch of like 3 to 5 teenage boys wearing armor to these various places? Like, does she just wave $100 bills in their face and be like, don't ask?
Oh my god, no! There's a shot in that episode. I don't know if it's in the I don't know if it's in episode 34 or 35, but there's a shot, and it's like Death Queen Island is sinking, and here's Sayori on this like nice yacht. I'm like, oh my god.
with her three severely demoted Steel Saints, which are now just her errand boys. They went from like saving them and being so amazing and cool looking to literally just being her assistants. Like, are they gonna answer the phone for her too? Like,
I know they're gonna like set up dinner dates. It's great. I have strong opinions about the Steel Saints, and like I think it's episode 30. It's episode 35 because again, I have notes on here, and all of my notes are like, this is a filler episode. It's the worst. Oh no, why are we here? Why are the Steel Saints here? Why? No, I don't care. It's just like I know people have a lot of love for the Steel Saints, and when they first came out, they were kind of fun and cool and great, but they quickly turned into like, okay, you needed somebody else in this scene for Saori to talk to, and so you threw in a Steel Saint.
Oh yeah, and like I'm a big toy collector, so like I kind of see I saw like that I saw like, it was a trend in Japan for them to do all that kind of thing, like this mecha or mecha Jason kind of thing. I think that's a good way to describe what they were trying to do with it. And yeah, I mean that's what it was. They were like, yo, we need to sell toys like now.
My main gripe with the Steel Saints is not necessarily that they fade so quickly like we saw in this batch of episodes. Like they literally we only see one of the. I can't. There's such a flash in the pan. I don't even remember which one of them actually put his cloth on in the last episode that we watched. One of them did to come and help out. Um, but other than that, like none of them, like they never really transform all that much anymore, and they kind of fade to the background. But my problem is that it kind of muddies the hierarchy that they were trying to set up. Like bronze is the bottom, then there's silver, and then there's gold. And we already have several questionable. Like where do the Black Saints fit in on that tier list? Are they Bronze Saints? Are they their own category that's either above or beneath the Bronze Saints? Then we have several of these other saints before they started specifically saying Silver Saints. It's like, are they Bronze Saints or are they like some random weird classification? Like who are these people? Like there's like the yeah, that's exactly who I was about to bring up. Like so I feel like they just kind of muddy that hierarchy even more, and so like their existence bothers me, like in that sense. But as far as characters, especially how they functioned in this group of episodes, like they were, it's so sad because I remember watching on Cartoon Network their how they like debuted and like saved the day and were so cool and had these really, quite frankly, neat concepts where they had like the vehicles and all, and they just seemed really interesting. And then what? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, well, the history of the Steel Saints. in the context of the show is it's kind of interesting, but also kind of hilarious because if what I read is correct, when they pitched Saint Seiya for a show, they were like, "Hey, we want to have the show where it's a shonen show. It's kind of like a Sentai show." And they're like, "Okay, cool. What toys can we make out of it?" And they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll definitely have toys that can be made out of this show." And then, like, eventually they're like, "Hey, no, really, we need to sell toys." And so they made the Steel Saints to be like Transformer toys because that was what was really popular at the time. Because figures like we have now is not as popular back then. It was all about the Transformers. And so for
I love that thing. I love it. I love that thing so much. I saw the commercial for that not long ago, and it was just ridiculous. And I love it, and I want it.
yeah, because they had to have money coming in because there wasn't a whole lot of money with advertising. They're like, we need to sell toys to keep making the show, and so they're like, oh, okay, Steel Saints. But then
And I believe too, like one of the main sponsors was Bandai. So like they was like they were giving their so they had to like they were whipping the whipping Kuromada, and I'm pretty sure all the character designers to make something, anything they can put as a toy. Even if you had to sell, if you had to sell a laser, a quote unquote laser gun that looks like Seiya's fist, and you have to like that you launch it like a Pegasus of Rayo Seiken, and they make it laser tag.
exactly, it was Bandai.
So basically, if you're listening closely enough and you want to sell somebody, I'm the most vulnerable to advertisements apparently because I thought they were cool when I was a kid. So if you need to sell something, target me.
I know one of the sole single Steel Saint fans.
So like I guess for me, like my thoughts on the solar on the steel state is that I didn't even as a kid, I was, what's going on here? Like I knew it was like, are you trying to sell me toys here? Like are you like blatantly trying to like make me buy this? Because like I was like 9 or 10, and I was starting to like I was starting to realize the pattern on things. Like okay, this cartoon is meant to sell toys or this and that. So it's like okay, I perfectly knew like at like age 9 or 10, like yeah, and then it was like it was kind of show that was meant for me to be like buying toys as well, other than being an awesome cartoon. But I knew at an early age, I knew like at around that point, I was like, yeah, it's trying to sell me something at this point. It's trying to sell me something. I quickly knew when I was watching it, I was like, this is I think the characters they want me to buy stuff from, and I was like, I don't like that. And I started seeing like more, and it's like, and as a little kid, I was like, even as a little kid, I was like, I don't get it. And you'd be surprised, like everybody like when I was growing up, everybody didn't like them. Everybody had the same opinions. Like they look cool, but like, can they do stuff? Like, why can't they do cool things like the rest of the Saints can? It's like, yeah, yeah. You make a good point. Like, no,
I just wish that they would do more budget releases like the Bam Presto ones. I would love to have like if they did the Silver Saints in like those Bam Presto statues, I'd buy them in a heartbeat. But when you get to these more niche characters, and the Steel Saints are incredibly niche. When you get to these more niche characters, the really your only option most of the time is the like super expensive like cloth EX releases that are $100+ and it kind of stinks. Like I mean, I'm not a fan of them, so but I can imagine out there's somebody that's one of the Steel Saints or maybe the trio as a whole. Yeah, like I'm sure somebody out there like that's their like absolute favorite character or trio or whatever, and they go to look for merchandise on all, and it's like okay, you have to pay a little bit over $1,000 if you want all three of them. And it's like nope, shut that down. So I mean, I get that. I get that they were there to sell toys. It's just very kind of like Ramsey was saying. It's very ironic that they were there to sell toys, but people didn't like them, and there's not a lot of toys of them. So, like in the broader scheme of things.
here's the thing: if I went in cold and they had those figures right now, I'd buy them. I make no shame in that. I make absolutely zero shame in saying if the same thing was made in 2021 and they had all the same elements, like bringing the Steel Saints, I'd be like, I don't like them, but those look so cool. I'm gonna buy at least the toys. Oh, here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Mexico skipped out on a lot of the Saints. We didn't get a lot of. We got most of the Saints. Steel Saints, we never got them.
Not like I no, not my favorite characters. They look cool. I would love to have them on my shelves if they were reasonably priced, but they're not. So they're just altogether forgettable. Kind of like this whole arc, unfortunately, is a little bit forgettable in my opinion because in hindsight, like if we were kids in the '80s watching this, it might not be as forgettable because unless we're reading the manga, we wouldn't know what's coming next. But in hindsight now, to be rewatching it, you just want the Gold Saint arc to be there. You want this section to be done and over with, so you can see Seiya get his fucking sorry, so you can see Seiya get his butt destroyed by Taurus. Like you want to skip to that. You want to get there, get it started, but
Yeah. I mean, I like parts of this arc because I do love Oko. I have many notes about how much I love Oko because he was a filler character, but I felt like he fit into the narrative of the whole show because he kind of reminds me in a way of like a predecessor to the later stuff with Hyoga and Isaac, where he was another trainee happening at the same time. He was similar age, but very different personality. I liked Oko a lot, and I liked how he, again, like I said earlier, I feel like he was a bit more honorable. He's like, oh, Shirio's blind, well, I'm gonna play fair. And I also, I don't know, I just love him to death. I think he's great.
And one of the things that's interesting,
yeah,
you brought up a good point, is that he's
I mean, this
more
arc has a
fleshed
lot of
out
good side characters, but
side character,
unfortunately,
and we're gonna see a lot more side. We're gonna see a lot
since
more fleshed
people
out side
see this as kind
characters.
of a drag
As a
sometimes to get
We're
to the
gonna
Gold Saint
see a
arc, it
lot
gets
of good
overlooked. But I
side
don't think
characters.
I
They may not
mean,
be
just like
meaningless, but
Nuri was saying, I
they're
don't think
very
that
heavy
anybody should
with
overlook Oko.
backstory.
He is a really
Very
good character. I
very
really
heavy,
like
but they have a
seeing
lot of
these
a
other
good
people
backstory.
that were
So
so close.
they're not gonna be
Which Oko wasn't
as
necessarily so
as
close, but like some of these other
villains.
trainees that were so close to getting the cloth and then failed,
So
and like
in a way,
they're having
Oko's
to
kind of
go
like the
on with their
precursor to what we're
lives
gonna see a
with that
lot later in
loss, and a lot of times confronting the person that did get the cloth, like in this case with Shiryu. I like seeing that. I like having more characters that aren't saints but can still hold their own in battle. That's pretty cool because most of the civilian characters that we come across are like fill more the damsel in distress role or just like a non-combatant like side role that doesn't get involved too much. So it's really cool to see this person who doesn't have a cloth and is just channeling Cosmo on his own, basically go head to head with Shiryu. And of course, Shiryu was handicapped by being blind, but it was still a really cool fight, especially for something that's essentially a filler episode. Like I know technically we're building Shiryu's character and developing, like trying to hammer home that he's blind, only for him to be cured super quickly after, but still somehow as I say, but still somehow him being blind is like his iconic character trait, so they just brought it on back. but but yeah, it's like we cure his blindness too fast. Dang, I guess we got to do it again. People really seem to like that for whatever reason. Yeah, but I honestly forgot that he got his sight back because he's just so iconically like the blind character. I forgot that he got his sight back for a while, to be honest with you. So when Seiya was climbing that mountain to get the water, I was like, oh yeah, this like it's gonna be like a wild goose chase. And then in the next episode previous, like, yeah, they're gonna give it to him and he gets his eyesight back. I'm like, oh, I forgot.
Well, like I don't think he gets it back. I think it doesn't work because he gets it back in Cancer Temple.
I thought it. Oh, I thought he got it back with the. Oh, maybe it did last longer than I thought it did.
Yeah, then he loses it again, quote unquote. Like if we're going by the manga, he loses it permanently when he's in the Seven Seas saga.
Mm-hmm. My bad. For some reason I thought in the next episode preview it said that he got a side back, unless it was like a bait and switch moment.
No, it does. He gets it back in Cancer. It's a bait. It's definitely a red herring because they're gonna cure Shiryu with the magic water, and then it's like, no, it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, yeah, it doesn't work. Seiya, why did you go ask Moo? What is Moo gonna do? He's like, he's just like, oh, I'm gonna ask Moo because he was able to fix our armor. I'm like, okay, so he's a smith. That has nothing to do with your eyes.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna like blacksmith some pair of eyes?
Not only that, but like Boo wasn't even there, so he took advice from Kiki. Like, don't take advice from Kiki.
Listen, I love Kiki. I would not trust Kiki with shit.
Exactly. He's a little gremlin, but like he's a normal little gremlin, but I wouldn't trust him with my life.
I mean, to be fair, later on, Kiki does prove himself to be quite the tough little guy, and I love him. And in Omega, he gets the Aries cloth, which he deserved. But he's like 7. I'm not going to trust a 7-year-old to tell me how to fix my friend who gouged out his optical nerve.
Yeah, especially when it's like a task that will probably kill you and has killed like tons of other people. There's like dead bodies littering the road. It's like maybe I shouldn't trust a little kid telling me to go on a suicide run. Like maybe I shouldn't.
I think I would be like I would question things like, yeah, many people got killed while they're going their way up. You know what? Shiryu, be blind for a little bit longer.
You know, they say that when you're blind, the rest of your senses go into hyperdrive. You'll be fine. It's fine.
Shiryu, have we really explored all of our options?
And I assure you, I know you want to see, boobies, but touch film is just as good. I promise. Like,
Oh my god, that scene. So speaking of, we had talked about tropes earlier in anime, and like, of course, it's the whole like, no peeking, ha ha ha, but it's like the worst time for Shunrei to make that joke, because Shiryu is immediately like, because he's blind, and then immediately afterwards, he's just like, unfortunately, that won't be a problem. I'm like, Shiryu, that's a crime! Shiryu, you're like 14!
yes, I got so annoyed.
That's the whole point!
Well, there was also a part where like he said it might have just been the translation, like it might have been just what the translator decided to translate it as, but like Oko said something to him and he said I see, and I'm like no you don't. Like you very much don't see that. But yeah, this was a fun. Oh, I was just gonna say this was a fun set of episodes, mostly because we started the first episode with Seiya in the hospital, and we ended the last episode with Seiya right back in the hospital, right back in that hospital bed.
Full circle, baby.
Yeah, all the way around.
And that's one of the things I always make a joke about. Like Seiya is 80% time gonna like throw himself at the wall and pray to God it works. That's why most of the time I ever see him like ever make a joke. Yeah. And so it's like I've always made the joke. Like someone said recently, it's like, oh, if X and Y ever met Seiya, like most likely he's gonna throw himself at the wall and end up in the hospital for some reason. But other than that, they're gonna be good friends.
He literally threw himself at the wall.
Seiya's hospital bills must have been ridiculous.
That's why he had to be friends with Saori. He just needed her to be able to pay for it. Luckily, Japan has universal health care.
It feels like a really nice contrast to her at the beginning of the series, where she was a little bit more stereotypical, a little bit more whiny, and like not understanding, but like she grew as a character and now she understands. Like she gave him the option to like retire to the countryside with her, knowing that he wasn't gonna do it. Like she wanted him to know that she'd be there no matter what, but she wasn't going to like pitch a fit if he wanted to keep fighting. But because she knew that he was going to choose that, so it was some nice character development. I feel like she's a character that we don't see enough of, but when we do, like they really hammer home that she's like growing as a human being, like most people do when they're in their like mid to late teens. Um, Become actual people instead of like carbon copies of like your parents or just like whatever, like however the world is shaped, you start coming out to be your own person when you're in your late teens, which is probably why it's so popular in anime. Um, but yeah, she gets some nice character development, and it's something that's underappreciated because she like I said, we don't see her a ton, so she's not. I mean, maybe for you because you really like her, but for me, she's not the first person I think of when you say, "Yeah, the anime Saint Seiya, Shinrei." Like, no, but
But it's what's so funny because we were talking about how Oko is a good side character. I also feel like the episodes 33 and 34, which had the Oko episodes, were really good Shunrei episodes. Again, I love Shunrei so much. I really appreciate that when Shiryu is like so down and he's just like, I give up and you should just give up on me, Shunrei, and move on. She's just like, stop being such a baby. Get over it. Like, she's like, you can't change what happened. You decided to risk your life to throw away your sight for your friends. You need to live with the consequences. Like, it sucks, and I'm here to support you no matter what, but you need to stop wallowing. I really appreciate that she very much was like, hey, stop being so negative. Stop wallowing in your regret. If you made this decision, then you need to stand by it.
um, I know one of the things I noticed watching these particular 5 episodes in isolation was the weird contrast. Well, I don't know if it was purposeful, but it definitely stuck out to me because you were talking about Shiryu having this family unit with Shinrei and his master Doko and all of that, who's Roshi, I think is what he's known as currently. Um, yeah, so he has sort of his family unit, and it's stable, and it allows him to grow up and be a bit more kind-hearted. Whereas in the first episode that we watched, which was about Iki's backstory, it was a very similar thing. It was, his teacher and then a young girl that was his companion, but it was wildly different because the teacher was highly abusive and the girl ends up, unfortunately getting killed. And it's like this weird contrast of they have the same setup, but how differently, well, not the same setup, but they have the same like structure to their training in like homes, quote unquote, but because Iki's was so tumultuous and his companion died, he didn't have that rock there. He kind of delved into more of the anger, whereas Shiryu was able to continue in this. Like he had hard training, and Roshi was hard on him, of course, but he was in a more loving environment, and so he grew up to be more zen and more calm and um, less angry and that kind of. It was just it's just me putting my 2 cents out there, but I thought it was a very strange and interesting like foil that they did, especially having those back to back like that.
No, she's not the first person I think of either. But I think that in terms of just in general, like again, is she's a supporting role. That's her job, is a supporting role. But she's, like I said earlier, she plays a supporting role that I feel is just as valuable as any of the fighters, because she, like you said, she tells Shiryu, hey, you don't have to do this. You can retire. You and me can build a life here and be happy if that's what you want. I'm not going to force you, but that's an option. Because I feel like a lot of the saints, especially the bronzes who were taken in by keto and everything like that, are basically forced to becoming saints because they have no choice. you know, like it's so funny. I'm speaking of that because in the first episode, Iki is talking about when he goes back to Death Queen Island. He makes a line that says, "This is like my second home, except I have no fond memories of it." I'm like, Iki, you were abused orphan. Do you have memories of your first home? Like, what do you mean that?
You can also remember too, like just before you left, that Tatsumi decided to smack him around a few times.
Yeah, like you don't have fond memories of any of your homes. It doesn't seem like, other than the ones that apparently with your parents that died. So it's all sad. But with Shiryu, I feel like he is the one that has he's the most grounded of them because he has a quote unquote family outside of being a saint. Even though Doko is the Libra saint, even though Doko is training him to be the dragon saint to take on this role, he still feels at times more like a familiar fa- famil- familial figure than, say, you know, with Iki and Guilty, or even Shun and his teacher was not necessarily like a family unit, even though I feel like, if because I don't know if either of you have read any of the episode G manga, but in one of the episode G Assassin, which is about Shura, there's a scene where Camus talks to a girl that, this is again spoilers, Hyoga adopts a child in episode G, and Camus comes back from the dead and he meets her and he calls her, he's like, you can call me grandpa. So he sees himself as Hyoga's father, even though he's like a teen dad because he was like 14 when Hyoga went to go train in Siberia. So, but Shiryu, I'm going back to Shiryu. He has Shunrei and Doko, and they kind of have a more quiet, reserved family unit where it's not always training every day versus the others, which I feel like were much more intense. Not saying that Shiryu didn't train as hard, but I feel like he was able to have a life outside of that with someone like Shunrei, who isn't a fighter. With Hyoga, he and Isaac were both fighters. With, you know, Seiya, he was in Sanctuary surrounded by other people fighting. Same with Shun in Andromeda Island. So he has a more grounded role, which I think is why he's the more mature, more calm, composed of the main team. So I like Shunrei's role because she provides him this option of like, hey, you can have another choice that I feel like the other bronzes don't feel like they have, because they don't have a home to go to. Seiya's still looking for Seika. He's not going to go. He's not going to quit when he still hasn't found her. Shun doesn't have Andromeda Island to go back to. He can't. That's not his home. You know, technically, Hyoga could go back to Siberia to be with his dead mom, I guess, but there's no one there for him.
And also that the power and the violence has a time and a place. It's not for everything, because that was one of the main reasons why he wasn't as fond of Oko, because Oko was out, beating kids up and showing off his strength to everybody and being a showboat. And it was more for Doko. It's more like you use it when you have to use it. It's not something to be prideful in. It's something that you use as a necessity. And that's completely different from how Iki was trained, where Iki is trained to just go full force, nonstop, every day, all the time, no matter who it is. Even if it's your own daughter, just, kick her in the face and kill her or whatever. Kill your own daughter. If your family's bringing you down, get rid of them. Like, you don't need them. No.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you mentioned that, because that's a good point. I've never really thought of it that way before, which I think is kind of fascinating because I love the dynamic between Iki and Shiryu. I think that they have a very cool dynamic. It's actually touched on in the episode where before Seiya, well, after they come back from Death Queen Island, and, Seiya's like, we gotta wait for Shiryu. We gotta wait for Shiryu. And Iki's like, no, he's blind. He's gonna hold you back. Like, and Saori meant, because everybody's like, oh, Iki's just being a jerk. He's just being a dick. But Saori's like, no, he cares about Shiryu a lot. He just isn't showing it the same way. And I think that is reflected in what you were saying. The way he grew up, he did not grow up learning to convey his emotions in a healthy way. He was told that the only valuable emotion is anger and hate, because that contributed to his strength as the Phoenix Saint, versus Shiryu grew up with, Doko, who didn't encourage him to be violent. He was like, you have to be strong, you have to learn how to control the flow of the water, which was very much more, I think, could reflect on how he controls his emotions. He has to think about how to direct those feelings. And
Mm-hmm. But whether they intended it or not, it still made for really interesting like storytelling that you can either choose to just accept it as like a somewhat filler episode, or you can actually see it as world building and character building and set up for future scenes and interactions and things that kind of explain why that character thinks that way. And the whole interaction with Sayori where she tries to explain to Seiya that not everybody processes their emotions the same way. Like he was by saying he should leave Shiryu behind, he was being rude about it, but it was his way of saying Shiryu's gonna die if he goes with us, and I don't want him to die. But to Seiya, all Seiya was hearing is Shiryu's weak and he's crap, and you should abandon him. And but what Iki was trying to say is that I don't want him to die. Like he doesn't deserve to die right now, and he's too weak to fight. So just leave him behind. Like let's keep going and keep pushing forward. But Seiya's power of friendship won't let that happen.
No, totally. Like that, they're very much foils, I think. And I'm somebody who loves their dynamic to bits, and so I think that's something I really didn't consider, which I think is very. I would love to. I wish they would explore that more. That's a good point. That the setup is similar, where it has the teacher has the student, and then it has the female companion in some way or another. Because with Iki and Esmeralda, again, it was she had said that, like, they mentioned it in the episode where she's like, oh, the world is full of such pretty things and not everywhere is like Death Queen Island. And and then at the end of the episode, Iki's like, yeah, you're right, not everywhere is so dark and gloomy and stuff like that, and or full of violence and things. And with Shunrei, and on the other hand, with her, it's like, not everything, you don't have to be a saint, you don't have to do this. There are other options, other avenues for you to live your life and still live a fulfilling life. So I think it's really an interesting way to contrast the two, and I don't think that they intended for those two episodes to be back to back and fit each other so well, but it did work out that way.
Yeah, like no. Listen. Look, let him have his time. Let him let him do whatever he needs to do. Villa Zen Garden, whatever. Just, let him go. Let him go. Let him go, man. Just let him go. He said that like, yo, just fine. But Seiya's so fucking stupid, but gosh darn it, he's got moxie.
Well, because Seiya, it's so funny, because Hyoga has the same thing where, there's a line Hyoga says when Seiya's in the hospital. He's like, oh, Seiya's stubbornness won't let him die. I'm like, Hyoga, stubbornness is not going to stop eternal bleeding. Like, and so I think that it just shows how immature, I think, like, even Seiya and Hyoga both, because they're both like, oh no, we can all do it, we can go do it, but Shun and Iki are both like, no, leave Shiryu alone. He's done enough, let him go.
Seiya wants everybody to do their best, and sometimes he doesn't realize that people need to find their own way to do their best, and this is a really good example where Shiryu was like at a pivotal point to where he was basically deciding if he was going to continue being a warrior or not, because he needed to find out, is this too crippling for me that I can't fight anymore? But in Seiya's mind, he had already made that decision for Shiryu, essentially. Like, no, this isn't the end. This isn't going to ruin you. We're going to keep going. We're going to fix it. But that wasn't his decision to make, and I think that's kind of what the entire situation boiled down to, is that Seiya had already made it up in his mind that Shiryu wasn't going to give up. But Shiryu was not sure yet.
Well, Shiryu also had to regain his own confidence, because Seiya's confidence rarely is ever shaken, which I think is a credit to his character. I don't think Seiya, I mean, he does stupid things, believe me, and I joke I joke around with how he has one brain cell that he shares with Shiryu, and Shiryu holds it most of the time. But he is a very honest and genuine person who, like you said, he wants everybody to do their best, and he thinks everybody is as gung-ho and ready to throw themselves into the next fray as he is. And it's like, Shiryu had no confidence because he lost something that was very important to him. He had very much built his identity as a saint. And so it took him a while to figure out if he could be a saint still. And he can be a saint and be blind. He learned that, but he had to develop that on his own.
Oy vey. Anyways, if you're asking about what I think there's a group of episodes. And I mentioned this before, and I mentioned this again. I mentioned this to you guys too. It's like when you're a little kid and you're watching these day by day, you think these episodes are a lot longer than they really are. Because like sometimes like when I was watching these when I was like a little kid, when I was like watching these when I was 10 years old, I was like, oh my god, like why won't these like arcs end? But no, I could have sworn that there were like five episode blocks, but no, it was like 2 episodes, and you get a lot in 2 episodes, and I guess that's why it felt longer because you're getting so much put into it in 2 episodes that you really don't feel it at when you're an adult or you finally have a little bit of understanding of like how pacing and like writing works a little bit better. So when you start to watch those as an adult and you're binging these, it's not as serious as it is. And granted, there are some like horrible things, or rather, there's some like subpar things in my opinion. Like again, we can discuss the Steel Saint as all, like we can make an entire episode on that one as well in the merits, and we can make it if you want. You can make an entire episode, but overall, like when you watch these, like you don't really you get like you get a better sense of these characters and where they are. And one last thing that I think that wasn't brought up that I find that's interesting is like I never got like an inherent evilness from Oko. He was misunderstood and he was mean, but he was not like inherently evil. Like he was just like I never got that, and that was one of the more interesting things. And it's like that, and again, like I said, it's something we're gonna see a lot later when we get to stuff like Asgard, and we get to see like we get to see the God Warriors, and how like they're not necessarily evil. They're just taking orders from someone that's been possessed, but they also like have their own backstory as like why they're doing this and why they have a lot of like why they chose a lot of like decisions and stuff like that. So it's a good like precursor to stuff that we're gonna see a lot later. That I think that is just as important, if not even more.
My closing thought would be anybody listening to this, I know that there's a lot of guides out there. I haven't seen one specifically for Saint Seiya, but they exist for pretty much any anime. It's like what episodes can you skip and still, what episodes are just filler and you can skip them. I don't know if these episodes would be on there or not, but I really say don't skip them because these really, though they can be kind of a trudge to get through some of these like extended um, flashbacks with really weird character models where they they couldn't decide how young they wanted these characters to be in the moment, so they just look kind of awkward. Um, just get through them and pay attention because this kind of sets in stone how these characters are going to interact as a group because up until now, the group's been kind of fractured, and through the Gold Saint arc, it'll continue to be fractured because that's just the nature of it. But it shows you how they are going to react to each other and how why they're acting the way that they're acting because it's their backstory, and I just think that they're a good chunk of episodes to really gets you into the motivation of a character while not being overly plot heavy at the same time. So I just don't skip them. A lot of people say skip straight to the Gold Saint arc. Please just watch the Silver Saint arc. It's not that bad, I promise.
I would agree. My final thoughts are I do complain about the Steel Saint arc. I do complain about why do we have to go get this water for nothing to happen. But I like it was said, like KDF said, it's very much a very good setup for you get to learn how these characters interact not only with each other in a group, but how they interact with others. Like, again, you see how Shiryu reacts with Oko, because he reacts to Oko in a very different way than he reacts to the others, because he's kind of brash and like, hey, no, I'm gonna fight, you have to fight me, don't, Shunrei, don't tell him that I'm blind, because I want him to treat me the same that he always treated me. And so, and then same with Iki, you get to see how he develops when he has this moment where he realizes that the world's not as bad as he thought it was when he first was on Death Queen Island. And it's a good setup for what's to come, because you get to take a breather to get ready for some really intense stuff that's going to be coming down, because we get into the beginning of Sanctuary. There's some scenes that were weird because the stuff that never comes up again, like Saga being able to control a volcano, but it's fine. Don't ask, don't worry, just watch and enjoy. Don't think about his magic wand or the fact that he had skull motifs everywhere and nobody was suspicious.
I also the Sayori being able to like teleport them in like colored orbs. Does that happen again? I don't remember that ever happening again.
She Glinda the Good Witch them.
Because she literally just teleports them magically off of Death Queen Island. Yeah, she basically Queen Serenity them into the sky in those little bubbles.
There's some that are evil. When we get to the Gold Saints, we'll get into the ones who are pretty evil.
A lot of the Gold Saints are like that too. They're not evil. They're just following the Pope's orders. They don't think twice if the Pope tells them to do something. And there's this narrative that Sayori is a heretic and all of this kind of stuff. So they're not evil. They're just trying to. Well, not all of them are evil. They're just trying to protect Sanctuary. Yeah, yeah. Not well. I meant not all of them are evil. But yeah, I good group of episodes. Good first outing together. I feel like I think we did pretty good.
Well, if you want to hear more of my Saint Seiya opinions or just in any of my other general opinions, I am Neri Hayu on Twitter. I am also Neri Curry on Tumblr. I post on Tumblr pretty infrequently, but I am on Twitter a lot, so feel free to add me there and do whatever, and we can talk about Saint Seiya. It'd be great.
I'm mainly focused on the Twitter sphere. I'm technically on Instagram, but it's been a while since I posted there. But I am at Kamen Rider Furry. That's KAMEN Rider Furry on Twitter. I also have my own upcoming podcast that's coming out relatively soon. It got really set back by some computer issues and some sickness issues and things like that. So it's going to be a little bit in the future, but you can go ahead and start following me at Ancient Anime Pod on Twitter as well to kind of get the hype train going for that. But other than that, yeah, that's where you can find me, and I post a lot of sarcastic opinions that I typically are poorly received. So hopefully you'll receive them a lot better than some of the current people.
And as for me, you can find me on my personal Twitter, L_Ramses. That's just like I'm rambling about everything. I'm either rambling about a movie I just watched, I'm rambling about something that's on TV, or I'm rambling about anything that just like that makes no innate sense. So one minute I'm talking about like a movie, and next minute I'm talking about sports, and something like it sounds like it's weird shit like that. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can go there. But I highly encourage everybody to go to ST Cosmocast. Again, that is ST Cosmocast, all one word, and that is our official Twitter for the podcast. You can give your thoughts, opinions, and join our discussions about the episode, and say something nice about our new host. I really love these. I'm really loving this new format that we got going here. I'm really happy that that we got together to do this. I'm really happy that I was really scared that something bad was gonna happen, but I have, other than some like stuff that beyond my own control, that I won't mention. But other than that, I'm other than that kind of thing, I'm really happy about this, and hopefully soon, we can get into a little bit of a better groove, and we can start do a lot more and stuff like that as well. out to these amazing people as well. And also, if you so choose, you can also use the hashtag Keep Burning That Cosmos, all one word, to also interact with us as well. So for me, I am Ramses. And I'm here to say, keep burning that cosmos. Later.
And I'm Kara.
I'm Nuri.
Bye.
Bye.